Hello, PICA fans. Welcome back to the playoffs. As always, my name is Bob and Fishy, and today we've got a really cool match. This is going to be the Hoenn Semifinals. This is the match between Gargleflop and Science Guy Josh. Now, if you saw the last match with Gargleflop, he was able to beat MKB. I think it was 3-0, and he pretty much won it with this Mega Sceptile here. And of course, Science Guy Josh had the, I think, second best overall record, or tied for second best, but with the best KD of all of his competitors there. In the regular season, Josh obviously did not end the season as well as he would have liked. However, he is still obviously one of the most dangerous competitors in the tournament. So we're going to go ahead and check out these teams. So first off, Gargleflop has two fire types right here. Two fire monkeys, sort of, more or less. Darmanitan, obviously going to be one of the most powerful physical attackers in the game. Just between sheer force, the nasty stab flare blitz, just some pretty good, coverage moves. Just kind of, you almost never want to use a coverage move on Darmanitan because even a resisted flare blitz is going to do more than, a neutral coverage move. That shows you how powerful this thing is. It can actually just Oko stuff that resists its moves. So, obviously Darmanitan going to be immensely threatening. Next up we've got Infernape, and now Infernape, sort of Darmanitan light. It's a bit faster. It's got that nice fighting secondary stab, which can throw some close combats around. Obviously having two stabs with very powerful moves are going to be able to, it's a real massive boon for any sort of Pokemon, and Infernape knows how to use it with very good mixed attacking stats, so it kind of, is able to kind of throw a monkey wrench into plans, if you'll excuse the pun, because you're not really going to know what it's going to be bringing. Even if you think Infernape's going to come, you don't know what sort of set it's going to be. Obviously, it has access to stuff like Taunt to augment its usefulness. It actually has access to Stealth Rocks as well, so keep an eye out for that. Although, if we're going to see Stealth Rocks, it's going to be from the Bastiodon right here. The mascot. Gargleflop has been able to use this thing really well in the past. Obviously, it's got a couple of different sets that it can run. They're all pretty similar, but you can run just a straight up, either defensive or specially defensive set based on what you think you're going to be running up into. Or you can throw Metal Burst onto that. Now, Gargleflop has gotten some KOs with the Metal Burst before, and it's always been pretty nifty because he's always able to get up the Stealth Rocks and then go Metal Burst and still get a KO. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. Now, if it doesn't carry the Metal Burst, it's going to be kind of setup fodder, but at the same time, Josh really doesn't have a ton of things that set up if you look at his team. It's a lot of individual guys who can just kind of wear stuff down, and then a bandit or scarfed or life orb guy to kind of clean up afterwards. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Next up, we've got this Crobat here. Now, Crobat obviously has the Infiltrator ability. We've seen Infiltrator be really good in the past. Just being able to bypass substitutes, that sort of thing. And of course, Bird Spam's always nice, being able to throw those Brave Birds, 120 base power. It's also got access to stuff like Cross Poison, which can potentially poison opponents. And just that secondary stab is always nice. It can run a defensive set or an offensive set. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the best defensive stats in the game, but being able to resist a couple of different key types and having just that really good speed to be able to, roost before your opponent attacks, that can be really nice. So, obviously, options are kind of the name of the game in this sort of format. So Crobat has a couple of different ones. Next up, we're going to see this Garchomp. Now, Garchomp obviously going to be pretty good in either a physically offensive or kind of a mixed defensive kind of role. Anything that makes contact, looking at you, Excadrill, is going to be taking a lot of recoil if this thing happens to be carrying the Rocky Helmet, because Rocky Helmet and Rough Skin do not mess around. Now, obviously, Josh is going to have this Excadrill here that's a potential Rapid Spinner, and Rapid Spinners do not like taking lots of damage every time they try to Rapid Spin. So Gargleflop has that in his back pocket if he decides to use it. Next up, we see the Sceptile. Now, Mega Sceptile can be used either offensively, or it's still an offensive set, but offensive subseed. is another option. Another really, really fast Pokemon. Going to be kind of good in that situation. Now, it does have access to a couple of other moves, but usually you're going to see either just an offensive set or a Subseed set or some sort of mix between the two like we saw last time with like Leech Seed and then some moves. Obviously, access to the Lightning Rod ability is going to be able to make it a pretty good switch in for this Rotom if Rotom is not carrying the HP Ice and Josh isn't predicting super well at the time. So, keep that in mind. It's going to be able to get that special attack boost and kind of throw some, potentially like a Leaf Storm or something. That would do a lot of damage. There's nothing really that Josh is going to want to have take a Leaf Storm. Obviously, Talonflame can, but if he goes for like a Dragon Pulse or something, Talonflame's not going to really take a lot of, or not really going to enjoy taking that. Of course, over here, we've got the, Kyurem Black that's not really going to want to take a Dragon Pulse on the switch or anything. So, yeah, basically, Sceptile, if it can get that Lightning Rod ability up, is going to be kind of a problem for Josh's team. That said, let's go ahead and look at Josh's team. So first off, he's got the Talonflame. Talonflame obviously has a couple of different sets that you can use. You can run like a Banded set and just throw some big damage right off the bat. You can run like a more of a defensive bulk up set, and that is actually really dangerous against a lot of different teams. Just being able to get a couple of bulk ups up and then just start throwing priority moves with like 120 base power. Not a lot is really going to be able to take that super well, so that's nice. Of course, it can also run Sword Stance if you're into that sort of thing. Now, Bastiodon's going to kind of be able to deal with that, especially if it's running like a Metal Burst or if it just gets rocks up and goes for like a Roar. Bastiodon's pretty much going to be the answer to Talonflame. So, keep an eye out for that. He's going to try to KO this thing quickly. Next up, we've got the Rotom Mow. Now, Rotom Mow is actually really good in this format. It's sort of a lower tier guy that can perform at the same level as some of the higher tier stuff. Obviously, Leaf Storm going to be a good stab move. Volt Switch obviously is always a good move. Could potentially throw some Wisp, some Thunder Wave, some Toxic. It basically has access to all of the good status moves. You're probably not going to want to run Toxic on Rotom, but you can, and that's the point. Next up, we've got this, names, I'm sorry, Empoleon. Now, Empoleon normally benefits from having some really good typing. That Steel typing is always nice, mixed with Water typing, which is always nice. You get some nice Steel Water, has a lot of resistances. Unfortunately for him, Infernape, going to be able to throw some close combats his way. Darmanitan could potentially throw like an Earthquake or something if it can predict the switch. And obviously Garchomp going to be able to throw a Stab Earthquake. Those are always dangerous. And even Sceptile over here is going to be able to throw potentially like a Leaf Storm or something. Empoleon's really not going to want to be taking that. But at the same time, it's got access to Ice Beam for this, Scald for these, and Ice Beam for pretty much this half of Gargleflop's team, Scald for the other half. So if it's like an Agility set or something, that could actually be super dangerous. So, that's something to keep in mind. Next up, we've got the Excadrill. Now, Excadrill has been one of Josh's go-to guys. It hasn't really been his MVP just in terms of statistics, but in terms of like something that he feels comfortable bringing to pretty much every match, Excadrill is very, very, very good. So, obviously, we can see potentially like a Life Orb, Leftovers, Scarf, whatever you want to run on Excadrill. It's pretty proficient with pretty much any item. So, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, next up, we've got the Kyurem Black here. Now, that's going to kind of be the elephant in the room. It's got massive physical attack. It's got, decent special attack. It can throw, some pretty gnarly stab moves around. And it's also got, access to some good coverage moves and, like, Earth Power and stuff. Substitute's always dangerous because you never want to have something just taking that sort of damage while it's just sitting there trying to break a sub. Luckily for Gargleflop, Crobat can bypass substitutes if it needs to, but at the same time, it's not going to want to take an Ice Beam on the next turn, or that turn. And last up, we've got Miss Magius. Now, I don't think Josh actually brought this Miss Magius the entire season. Yeah, it's something that he's kind of had in his back pocket, but at the same time, Gargleflop really not going to know what Josh likes to run on that. So that's actually a really, really good option for him here. Now, Miss Magius can throw some nice Shadow Balls, that sort of thing. Also has access to Destiny Bond, which is really good. It can throw Will-O-Wisp, another thing that can potentially status stuff. That's always nice. Basically, it's got some pretty good moves that it can potentially do, and it's one of those things that's kind of hard to predict, or even if you do predict it, it's kind of hard to deal with, even if you do know what it's going to do, just because Destiny Bond is always really, really dangerous. So, I think that should be it for the team preview. Let's go ahead and hop right into the match here. So, Josh is going to be leading off with his hashtag Feel the Burn Talonflame against Gargleflop's Bastiodon. Now, Bastiodon is Gargleflop's one of his go-to leads here. He's going to want to try to get up those rocks really early on. He does have the Sturdy ability, and we're going to see he's got leftovers here. Now, in comes the 24 Carat, the Excadrill, as the Stealth Rocks come up. Now, that's obviously going to be able to, just try to spin them away or threaten this Bastiodon out with an Earthquake, or both. Bastiodon goes for a nice Protect here. That's a good option here because he's going to be able to keep that Sturdy up. And we're going to see Josh went straight for the Rapid Spin, so that's going to let Gargleflop know, okay, he's not so much worried about, getting the kill on the Bastiodon as he is getting the Rapid Spin up. He's probably going to do that again. In comes the Garchomp, Rough Skin, Rocky Helmet, going to take a lot of the health off of this, the Excadrill, and we're not going to see any sort of leftovers or Life Orb, keep that in mind. So, next up, we've got Garchomp going for the Earthquake. Obviously, usually a safe move against an Excadrill. It's probably going to switch, but at the same time, if it doesn't, you're going to be able to hit it pretty hard. Voltergeist comes in, gets the nice immunity. Now, unfortunately for Gargleflop, he has not yet Mega'd his Sceptile. Otherwise, that Lightning Rod ability would have come in really, really handy. He would have also quad resisted the, Leaf Storm if Josh had gone for that. So, in comes the Talonflame. Obviously, Sceptile's not going to want to stick around for that. And he's just going to go for a U-turn here as Bastiodon comes in. That's going to be a good time to set up some more rocks potentially. But obviously, Patron, the Empoleon, going to be able to come in here, do whatever it wants to here. It's got the balloon. So, we're going to see the Sword Stance, not agility like I was thinking it might be. And the rocks come up. Now, here we're going to see Josh get a little bit greedy here. Where he's going to go for another Sword Stance. I probably would have just gone for the damage on Bastiodon here. You're not going to be able to one-shot it because of the, because of the Sturdy ability. And he's going to Roar. Like, that's pretty obvious. So, I think I would have just gone for an attack there. But he ends up going for another Sword Stance and pretty much losing it all. So now, 24 Carat's going to come right back in, go for the Rapid Spin. Now, obviously, since we didn't see an item that might hint that this thing is in some way choice, possibly Scarfed, we've seen Josh use that a lot in the past. So Gargleflop's going to be able to keep that in the back of his head. Now, obviously, another Rapid Spin's going to happen, but these are not good productive Rapid Spins for Josh. He's taken a lot of damage because of that, Rocky Helmet and Rough Skin. So, in comes Voltergeist, but nice double switch here. Darmanitan's going to come right on in, and he's going to be able to throw a nice move, probably a nice Flare Blitz, and we're going to see that hit really, really hard. I think this Darmanitan is banded, and he's going to take 75% off of the Talonflame there. Keep in mind, that's a resisted hit. So if rocks had been up, obviously would have just killed him, but at the same time, like, that is just going to be amazing damage. Of course, Talonflame not going to be able to go for too many Brave Birds or Flare Blitzes going forward. So, in comes the Kyurem Black. Obviously not going to want to let Talonflame die if he doesn't have to. And Bastiodon's going to be able to play a nice little prediction game here. Predicts the Ice Beam. That's going to let him get up rocks again. And again, more damage onto the Excadrill. He's going to have to spin those away if he wants to keep his Talonflame around. And Garchomp has shown it does not mind switching into those. So, Bastiodon is going to be able to eat up that Earth Power, even though it does take a special defense drop. He's going to be able to just Toxic that Full Buster, and just be able to pretty much just do some damage to him with the Toxic and Protect. Now here we're going to see a nice prediction on the part of Bastiodon and Gargleflop. Yeah, I am giving partial credit to Bastiodon himself, because, you know, he's the mascot. That's what he's here for. Anyway, he's going to take that Ice Beam. I'm not sure if he gets... Does he get frozen? No, he does not get frozen. Goes for the Roar and gets Full Buster right on out of there. And that's actually really good for Bastiodon. He's going to be able to just kind of mess with his opponent here. Now, Patron, obviously, he's going to expect the Roar coming here, so he's just going to go ahead and finish off Bastiodon. Say, I'm done with your games. If I Rapid Spin again, I want the rocks to be gone for good. So, there, down goes Bastiodon. Now, keep in mind, Gargleflop is down a Pokemon, but he's gotten a lot of use out of it. He's got Rocks up. He's got the, the Excadrill down to very, very low health. And in comes Sceptile here. Going to be able to Mega up. Goes through the Focus Blast, but, of course, Miss Maggie is going to be able to switch in and eat that up for free. Now, if Sceptile had gone for, like, you know, any other move there on the switch, he would have just been able to KO the Miss Magius, but Miss Magius is going to show us the Icy Wind KOing Mega Sceptile, which is a huge bummer for him, but at the same time, basically just going to be able to, you know, eliminate his opponent's Mega. That's always really nice. So Crobat's going to come in, go for the Acrobatics, KO the Miss Magius, but Miss Magius has gotten enough utility that I'd say it's worth it. So in comes 24 Carat, and he's going to go for the Rapid Spin here, get rid of those rocks one final time, and actually not take the Rocky Helmet damage because Crobat decides to stay in. Now that's interesting because, you know, it's not going to quite KO, and there aren't going to be rocks up next time. So if this thing is Scarfed, it could potentially do some good work there with, you know, some Earthquakes. So we're going to see the Acrobatics again. Patron doesn't really care about that. He takes a bit of damage, but doesn't really, you know, like, he's not going to just die to it. Now, he has taken a little bit of Stealth Rock damage, so, you know, keep in mind he's only at 60%. Now, Garchomp's going to come on in, and we've seen that this thing is a Swords Dance set, so that's a pretty good switch. It can't really do a lot to Chomp, and he's probably just going to die to either, you know, recoil from all the other stuff or just an Earthquake. Earthquake's pretty obvious, so Voltergeist is going to come on in for free. And probably go for a Volt Switch here. I know that would be kind of silly if Garchomp had stayed in. But yeah, that's this predicts the switch. That's a pretty good prediction in my opinion. But at the same time, it's you know, obvious Garchomp's not going to want to stick around against that. So that's cool. Anyway, in comes the Talonflame. Infernape does not want to stay in on a or any sort of Brave Bird there. And Garchomp's going to come in, trying to kill that thing with Recoil. However, Josh just goes ahead and switches out into his Full Buster. That's really interesting, though, because Garchomp is going to be able to outspeed that if it's offensive. And it is. He goes for the Iron Head, and unfortunately for him, does not KO. Obviously, any sort of Dragon move would have, but I actually don't think Garchomp was carrying a Dragon move. I think he had Earthquake and Endure, and then Iron Head and something else. I'm not sure what. Anyway, we see the Iron Head again as Voltergeist comes in. Not going to take anything from that. And that's actually not where you want to have your Garchomp. Now keep in mind, Josh went for the Earth Power on the Garchomp rather than Ice Beam, thinking it would switch out into one of Gargleflop's Fire types. So yeah, basically he didn't really take full advantage of the fact that Garchomp didn't have a Dragon move. But at the same time, Volt Switch here, another predicted switch out from the Garchomp is going to end up costing Gargleflop his, his Crobat. So that's a bit unfortunate. Anyways, Talonflame's going to come in and just go ahead and switch right on out as the Chomp comes in. Ah, there it is. The Chomp has the Swords Dance. Unfortunately, not really going to be able to do anything to Voltergeist. I think Quad resists Steel and is immune to ground. So if Garchomp had the, Dragon Claw, would have been able to probably do a fair bit of damage here. Unfortunately doesn't, and he's going to end up getting burned. And at this point, Garchomp's really pretty much useless. But if he'd stayed in and just gone for some damage, Voltergeist might not have been in as good a position. Instead, he's going to be able to Volt Switch on another very good prediction as Gargleflop switches his Garchomp out. And Darmanitan's going to be taking some damage. Now, Patron's obviously going to be able to potentially go for a Aqua Jet there. So he's going to want to go ahead and switch that that Darmanitan out. Aqua Jet does come. Unfortunately, even with all that recoil, Aqua Jet is still worth using because Garchomp is not going to be able to deal with it. Um, Now, he doesn't want to lose his patron just yet because he still has those 2 fire types to deal with. So he's going to want to just let the burn KO the Garchomp here. Now, that's actually really good because Garchomp goes for the Endure, just trying to get some more Rocky Helmet damage and stuff, and ends up just dying for free. So in's going to come the Infernape, and we'll see how much damage this Infernape's going to be able to do. He's actually Scarfed with Mach Punch. The idea was that if he was able to get Talonflame to low enough health, he would be able to KO with the Mach Punch. Unfortunately for him, Voltgeist is going to come in and now really take a lot of damage from that, and just going to be able to Volt Switch on out, do some big damage to Infernape, and just kind of not let him do anything interesting. So 24 carats going to come in. It did a good job in this battle, to be honest. Just getting those rocks off the field, 3 times I think it was. Now he's just going to let it go ahead and die, just so that he can get a safe switch right back into the Voltergeist. Go for a nice Volt Switch here. And obviously that's going to do it for the Infernape. And it's also going to let him bring in Patron for free to deal with this Darmanitan. Or actually you could bring in Talonflame as well. Both of them are good options. So basically, to deal with Darmanitan. So that's going to be it for this battle. Josh ends up winning it. I want to say, I think he just wins it here. Does he? Let's find out. Yep, that's going to be it. So Patron ends up getting the Aqua Jet win for him. So that's a 3-0. It was a really good battle, in my opinion. I think Gargleflop's main problem there was that he sacked off a lot of his important guys really early. Especially with the Crobat, just kind of letting it die to a predicted Volt Switch. Although he didn't really have anything for it anyway. So maybe, I think the main problem was that Garchomp didn't have any sort of Dragon Stab. I think that would have really, really turned the tide of the battle. But, obviously hindsight is 2020. So this was a good it was a good game. Good game Gargleflop, good game Josh, and we will see Josh in the finals. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, guys, my name is Bob and Fishy, and I will see you next time. Later.